Enjoyed that little trip to the cafe. It was so cold today, but I knew I wanted to venture out and get something sweet to talk about today's video, which is all of the books that I read in January. This January I decided to do something new, considering I have so many fantasy books on my TBR list. I decided to spend all of January reading fantasy novels. So that's what this video is about. This month kind of like renewed the faith I had in my reading capabilities, because honestly, as a young child, I was an avid reader. Like, I was that girl checking out 12 books at the library every time. But I felt like reading lit fic as an adult, there was so much more to digest, and I was always trying to think about things and read substacks. But of course, with TikTok, so many books have caught my eye, and I decided to finally read them after impulse buying them. So let's get started and talk about all of the books that I read in January. I started the month off really strong with the God Killer series by Hannah Kaner. I have the first two here, God Killer and Sunbringer. I really flew through the series. The first book follows Kissin, who is a god killer from Midrin, a kingdom where they have outlawed the worship of gods and the existence of gods. She and the other god killers are hired by the current king, Aaron, who won the Great God War and abolished the worship of gods, to eradicate any existing minor deities that might be out there. Something about this book instantly hooked me. I think it's the opening scene with Kissin and her family. I'm gonna keep this entire video as spoiler free as possible, but there's like a little twist to her personal experience and the things that she goes through with gods that kind of drives her to really become a god killer. She talks about at length how she kind of goes out of her way to seek out this career, and because of that, she has a very complex kind of hatred for these deities. Along her journeys, Kissin meets a young girl who has a very specific problem she needs her help with, and the two of them journey together to this place called Blenradin, which is where the Great God War happened, and it was the city where all the gods were worshipped, which is something I really liked about this book. The gods in it remind me so much of the Greek pantheon gods. They're not good, they're not nice, they're not all loving and knowing. They can be evil, they can be malevolent, they can be malicious and manipulative, asking more and more and more of their devotees. Because what's unique about this world is gods exist off of the will of humans. So for example, in areas that are really warm, there may be a god of lost sandals if you lose your flip-flops at the beach all the time. And that can exist alongside an ancient god of a mountain formation that's been there since the formation of the world. This book is multi-POV. It goes from Kissin and Alara's and also the other main character, Elo, who is a knight. He was kind of the king's hand and he fought alongside him in the Great God War, and he is now retired and he is a baker. They all join up for a reason unknowing to go on a quest to Blenradin, kind of like wrap up everything that they all have going with these gods. Because even though they don't exist, obviously a lot of this book has religious persecution metaphors in it, and anything we know about human resilience is that people will find a way to worship regardless if it's outlawed or not. So they join a pilgrimage of other believers to go find whatever existing gods are still out there to help them all kind of get what they need, which is something I really liked. I found the way that the gods interacted with humans in this story to be quite interesting. Some of them are really malicious, some of them are very tricky, they require boons, but some of them are very kind, they're very caring, they're very small, and they're scared. It's noted that in this war, the Great God War, the humans and gods actually fought together before the humans turned against the gods to eradicate all of them. So there's very complex, tense relations going on in this book, and I don't know why, but I just ate it up. It just felt so tangible. Like I wanted to jump into the pages of this book and just like exist as the narrator or like a part of the story. I really liked it, so much so that I went out and got Sunbringer like 2 days after I finished it. Without spoiling anything, this is set after our main group leaves Blenradin. They are separated because of events that have taken place, and this is kind of where the multi-POV got a little bit clunkier to read. I found that with Godkiller the POVs didn't switch as much versus in Sunbringer. Definitely during the action, you could tell the author was trying very hard to get everybody's point of view of what was going on when it was all kind of coming to a head, and I do think she did it rather successfully, but I did find myself having to kind of reread or slow down a little bit to realize what players were at play making what moves and like why it was important for XYZ person to be there. Again, I found that the twists in this book were really great. I thought the twists in the first one were good. I cried so much in this book. There is one specific scene in the archives. If you've read this book, then you'll know what I'm talking about, with the goddess of knowledge, Scion. I was literally sobbing. I really feel like Hannah Keener has done so much to really make you question like religion and worship and deities and the relationship that people have with it, and what does free will actually look like, and what should people be allowed to do with. This book also introduces another POV, which was Aaron, the current king of Midridden. That did kind of like aid to what I just said a minute ago, where the POVs are kind of hard to keep up with. I was actually happy that we have his towards the end, considering the final book, Faithbreaker, that comes out this spring, is going to be the culmination of what I'm assuming is going to be another great god war. Interesting thing that Sunbringer deals with in the Hannah Keener universe is gods can be reborn if their worship is strong enough. This book is also interesting because it really plays with how humans can worship each other, how people can be sycophantic towards a king or like super loyal to your friends, and what it means to really try and be there for each other and show up in the way that you can, and how oftentimes that can be divine intervention, and the help or the hatred that we give towards other people can really change the course of their life forever. I'm really excited to see where these books go. This is probably going to be a rare series reread for me. I almost never reread books, let alone series, but I'm almost equal parts excited and sad for Faithbreaker to come out, because I don't want to be done with this world. It's so funny because I love these books so much that I like messaged the author and I was like, I think you put something in these books to be addictive, and she was like, yeah, you have the special versions with crack in it, and I just thought that was so funny. So yeah, that was the God series by Hannah Keener. Check it out. So the next book I don't actually have because I listened to it on Audible, but it is A Trial of Sorcerers by Elise Kova, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, and I think this book is currently sitting at like a 4.9 on Goodreads, which shocked me but also didn't really shock me, to be honest. What is Trial of Sorcerers about? How do I explain this? So basically, in A Trial of Sorcerers, it's this world where elemental magic is kind of the main magic system, and you follow our main character Iara, I forgot how to pronounce it, Landon, who is a water runner, meaning that she can manipulate the use of water as her main power, who is currently studying at the Tower of Sorcerers. Like, that's what the school is called. Very bare bones, like basic magic we're working with here. Our main character, Iara, is actually an outcast because a couple years prior, a prank went wrong with some students trying to get one over on her, and a student accidentally died in the course of it. So she's kind of like a very powerful but kept like under wraps because everyone's kind of scared of her magic vibe. They kind of look at her like she's a ticking time bomb. Also attending the school are her brother Brendan and some other like minor characters who become bigger players throughout the series. All of this to be said, one day an elven ambassador shows up from a neighboring country. I believe it's called Lys. I'm actually not sure. You know guys, everything up here is, all the worlds and names are meshing together. But and that being said, it's this country that Iara has this big fascination with. She's like known throughout the school to like always be reading books about it, and it's kind of like it was their opposing country, and then a marriage kind of brought them together. So her liking this country, her having this kind of stain on her, makes her a pariah. So she decides she's going to compete in this trial called the Trial of the Five Kingdoms. Her uncle, who works at the school, her brother, they're all like absolutely not. Her parents are like absolutely not, but nobody can forbid her from applying, so she applies, and that is what the first book is just all about. It's really her going through the trials and also her introspection, dealing with an outcast, but also her family is very politically powerful. Her uncle is kind of like the dean of the school, kind of ish, so nobody can really do anything to her. She's just always kind of ignored and isolated. Honestly, what initially drew me to this book was the cover. I think the cover art is beautiful, and I am a really big fan of elemental magic. I think what was cool about Trial of Sorcerers, as the trials start to go on, there's no real stakes, right? They're not fighting for their life. It's not a death match type of Hunger Games style. They're in an academic competition. The farther you went on, the stronger and more craftier your magic had to be. What I appreciated about Trial of Sorcerers was they really understood how elemental magic can be cultivated and how it can be used for fear. Honestly, the elements are one of the things, natural disasters are one of the things that humans fear the most, we can't fight against. So I really did appreciate how intricate yet simple the magic system was. We didn't get to see much of the other magics because obviously our main characters manipulates water, and her brother does as well, which aids in the conflict because only one person of each elemental magic can go and represent the school, so she's fighting against her brother. This book was, it was fine. I felt like it was a little bit of a slug in the beginning. I felt like because I was listening to the audiobook, there were so many times that I did zone out, but I felt like midway through it kind of found its footing, and I feel like it played with the romantasy really nicely, as well as the betrayal. I felt like the twist was really nice. Spoiler alert, there is a main character who does die in the first book, and I felt like that was nice because a lot of times in fantasy books, especially the ones that I read this month, the stakes are very, very low. You know that the MC is not going to die because you know it's a series, and you know that even if the love interest does die, it's just going to be like retconned, and you're going to find out that his friend was like her immortal mate, glamour to not see her. But in saying that, I do think that right now it is a little surface level. It could have been pushed a little deeper. I felt like this was a very traditional, stereotypical intro fantasy novel where they start at the school and by the end of the series they'll probably be off on a planet far, far away. But in saying that, I did find the elf aspects to be interesting. I felt the twist was really well executed, and I felt that the writing in the tense moments, like when our main character, when Yara was going through it, I felt like it was really, really well written, which did kind of make me want to read the other ones because this is like a 5-book series. And that's a lot of Audible credits, so I definitely think I will continue on with this series. I don't know if I'll finish all 5. I did look up, and somehow pirates get involved. Oh yeah, that's like duh, that's like one of the main things I forgot. There's like this evil pirate queen, and she's like somehow involved. Maybe, we don't know yet. That kind of like threw me off. It was introduced midway, but I do think I could keep going with this. And apparently in my Goodreads reading of reviews, I found out that the neighboring kingdom that she's going to, that used to be at war and now has a princess from their kingdom as an ambassador, has a first series, so you can figure out how their country's history came to be and how they came to be allies through love, etc. So I might also start reading that. I don't mean to be condescending. I really do think that it was quite good, but quite basic. Like, I'm surprised that I liked it as much for as cliche as it should have been. In saying that though, I have the most cliche romantasy series I think I've ever read, and I loved it. It is Court of Winter, which is the first of Fae of Snow and Ice. If you watched my Why Everything Sounds the Same fantasy book video, then this will make you laugh because this is the blueprint. This is literally what I'm talking about. For some reference, I saw this book for 50 cents, wait no, 25 cents at my thrift store. I love it. And I saw this and I was like, this is, I need this. Literally sitting at like a 4.1 on Goodreads, which is crazy. So this book, what can I say about Court of Winter? It follows Elara Siri, who is a Solace Fae, who is a defective, meaning she doesn't have magic and she doesn't have wings. It follows the same trope as magical creatures being very discriminatory towards those who are others, in a way similar to kind of how humans are. But basically the Solace Fae are extra intolerable because they live on the Solace continent, which is the land of always winter. So that is the Court of Winter. Their land is winter, and they use magic, or what they call aurum in this book, to keep the plants alive and to grow things and to keep kind of in balance with the system. This book meets the main protagonist. She lives in a tiny little village, and one day the big bad, who is the MC, Prince Noravin, comes. He is the future king of the court of winter. He is the crown prince, and he basically spots her in a crowd and says, "You come with me and you're never seeing your family again." And she's like, "I actually don't want to go with you because you unalived my entire family." So that is the dynamic between our MCs. And yeah, they basically just go to court. The magic is being leached from the land, so they're not able to grow food, and there's these like celestial events that happen that replenish the magic, and they haven't happened. And it's a classic not all is what it seems with the female MC. Maybe there's a reason that she's magicless and so different from everybody else. I'm really struggling to remember the first part of this. I do remember there was a specific scene where they're like spying on each other when they're like in the nude, and I was like, whoa, this is definitely gonna be a spicy book. And it definitely was. I don't know what it was about this first book, but I actually kind of liked it. It is set in the first perspective, so it's I, this. She isn't called by her name really unless they're talking to her, but I don't know, it's just like, it was good. It was very A Court of Thorn and Roses inspired. The main MC has a group of guards that surround him. One of them is named Haxel, who I actually really like, and some of them distrust her, and then some of them are really nice, and they're kind of his inner circle, like the court of shadows. Kind of, the king is kind of cruel and manipulative, and the queen has kind of like secrets. And I don't know, I kind of really liked it, and I was like, you know what, because I like it, I'm going to listen to the second one on Audible. And whoa Nelly, did I forget how awkward it is to listen to romantasy books in audiobook format. So the second one in the series is called Thorns of Frost, and essentially Alara is still with Norvin, but this time she is at the court of winter, and she's met his brother and she's met his family, the political rivals, and it's a lot more of the political scheming. And really it's just day in day out them going different places, flirting, the tensions building, there's political scheming, and then all of a sudden the king introduces a trial for which 5 or 6, I don't even know how many girls will have to compete to see who will be the future queen. And there's like a scout that went around the country. It kind of got crazy, finding the most powerful girls who have like 3 powers, 4 powers, whatever, because I guess Noravin has like 6, and it's rare to even have more than 1. And so Alara is this girl who just found out she has magic, and basically the magic is just to like grow plants, and she has to compete in these trials with these girls who have like fire magic and mind manipulation. Very cliche Feyre under the mountain core. And it started to get like a little bit ugh to me when I realized that the twist at the end was going to happen, and then it did happen, and then it led to the female MC like fleeing, and then the next book they're gonna be separate. And I could not continue with the Fae of Snow and Ice series. There's 2 more books, Wings of Snow and The Crown of Ice. I want to say I'm not gonna read them, but sometimes I might be down bad for a little romantasy, and that Audible credit might be staring at me, and I might be staring back at it. So yeah, I did DNF the series, and I did DNF the next book I read, which I'm kind of scared to say this, but I did not finish Onyx Flame. Please, please, I'm just a girl. Save your stones, save your tomatoes. I don't know what it is, okay? But I loved Fourth Wing so much. I ate it up. I'm literally looking at the physical copy of it right now on my bookshelf. And I struggled to get through Iron Flame. I think what I realized in Onyx Storm that I didn't realize with Iron Flame is so much of what I liked about Fourth Wing was the dynamic of them in Basgiath. I liked the War College. I liked the Harry Potter-esque feel of it. I liked the idea of learning lore dumps through Violet, trying to concentrate. I liked the war games. And I think I liked the dynamic of her and Xaden, the enemies to lovers, will they, won't they type thing. That's why I think at the end of Fourth Wing I was a little disappointed when it was like, I'm in love with you, because I knew if at the end of the first book they were already doing these like big declarations of love and their dragons are soulmates, that they're probably going to go through a lot of back and forth, push and pull, being separated, emotional trauma, etc. throughout the series, which just isn't my favorite focus of a fantasy book. And to be honest, I really struggled with the introduction of the Venin and the whole rebellion plot being revealed, and Violet's brother being alive, and her dad knowing, and her mom actually being a good guy but actually being a bad guy. It was just too much, and I wanted it to be a lot more about kids in college learning to train their dragons or learning to fight. Earthwing and Onyx Storm just feel like two completely different books, and I was just struggling to keep up with all the characters and the names and who was important to who and what political alliances were important. Listening to the audiobook, and I think that I would either need to tandem read or actually read the physical book, and I'm just not that interested in the story. I was trying to get into the whole Andarna plotline of finding her family. I was trying to get into the whole Venin channeling from the sky versus the ground, and perhaps Violet and Xaden being gods, and like all this, what this means. And I think it's something that at the end of the series, if I can have a clear narrative of where it went, I might be able to enjoy it more because I'll be on the journey with them. But right now I'm just like lost in the sauce with the Fourth Wing verse. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's who. Like, the only person I care about is Tyrion at this point, you know? Speaking of huge series that are overly convoluted and complicated and beloved on TikTok, I finally decided to read Throne of Glass because I wanted to talk about it in the video I just did. Again, I listened to the audiobook of this, which I think made it much more enjoyable. I've struggled before in the past with Sarah J Maas's writing. It's no secret that I'm not really like the craziest fan of ACOTAR, but I actually really liked the first book. I do have a feeling it could give me the same Fourth Wing type feeling where the first book feels so completely different from the rest of the series that I'm just like, why am I even reading this? But again, it's a very stereotypical story for those of you who don't know. It follows Selena Sardathian, who is taken out of a prisoner of war situation, really like the worst situation you could ever be in, and invited to a trial at the palace to fight to be the king's hand, the king's assassin. And she is world renowned. She's like one of the best assassins in the world, and she's 17 which is very Sarah J Maasism. She's basically posing as a merchant's daughter slash jewel thief, and she's competing in this trial to win. All the while there are these unalivings happening where contestants are kind of just shredded to smithereens by some animal, and there's magic and time travel, and it was actually quite interesting. I found Selena to be very introspective and intriguing. I definitely can see the hype for Selena slash Eileen and her as a female MC. I really liked the lack of magic slash hidden magic aspect. Something is here, or there's secrets at play that the MC isn't aware of as it pertains to religion. That reminded me a lot of God Killer. I thought it was really well done. I've heard that it does suffer later on, and like I said, I've heard one of the main critiques about Throne of Glass is like the first book doesn't even compare to like the sixth book, and they're like different stories. I think I will be fine, only because I was very uninterested in any of the love interests. I really didn't care for Dorian or Chaol. I feel like they're very stagnant, kind of one note love interest. I know that there's obviously going to be secrets revealed in the next book, which I have started, and I'm sure that there is a lot more to them, but I just didn't find myself invested, you know? I really loved Nymea. I liked their relationship. I thought the way that they talked about trust and what you can tell friends and new friends while also protecting yourself was really well done. Yeah, I definitely think you can tell that Sarah J Maas studied George R. R. Martin, especially in the school of political scheming. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a complimentary thing. I think Throne of Glass is probably her best adaptation or strike at this, and the series is popular for a reason. So that's Throne of Glass. I liked it. I'm gonna keep reading the series. I'll let you guys know. You guys can also follow me on socials if you want to keep up with everything I'm reading and what I'm talking about over there. With that being said, if you do follow me, then you will have seen me post about these and talk about them on my stories, because I finally read A Cruel Prince by Holly Black. And I was kicking myself for putting this book off for so long. So beautiful. It sits on my shelf all the time, and I was like, I'm gonna read Cruel Prince. I needed to read a physical book after listening to everything in audio format. So I picked this up, and I was so pleasantly surprised. But not only did I read this, I read the entire series. So I read Wicked King and Queen of Nothing. I literally finished these books in days. I was so fully immersed. This world was so luscious. I feel like when I close my eyes, I can see what Fairy looks like, and I can see Maddox's stronghold, and I can see Locke's estate and Castle of Alfheim. Like, it's just so beautiful the way Holly Black writes. Ever since Spiderwick, I've just adored her imagery, and I think it's so present in A Cruel Prince, especially in the way that she describes foliage and the flowers and the food and the other fae and the different versions of them, just till she does her research, and she knows so much from so much folklore, and I just really liked it. I liked it so much. I also really liked Jude. I love a female MC who doesn't know her limits and who will literally just refuse to back down even if it means death. Scene with Prince Dane in Maddox's study, yeah, Jude Duarte never scared. You ever walked your enemy down with a poker face? I'm just saying. I really liked the enemies to lovers in this. I felt like the stakes were really high. I really liked the fae in this book. Admittedly, I am a sucker for a very traditional, like, trickster, evil type fae that's insanely beautiful, kind of like a poisonous fruit. That is definitely the vibe in the Folk of Air series for the fae. I also thought it was a great dynamic to have a human child being raised in fairy, but being the daughter of a very feared and very respected fae, and what it would be like to walk that line. I thought that was very interesting, very dynamic. I've heard people say that Wicked King is their favorite in all of the series over A Cruel Prince. I personally think, in retrospect, I liked A Cruel Prince a little bit more because I was getting to know Jude a lot more, and I was getting to know Fairy through her eyes, as well as getting to understand the dynamics between Locke and Cardan, brothers, and all of that, and the political scheming. I think that Wicked King was a lot more of Jude and Cardan, which I did like. It was a lot more political scheming. I think the second one was talking a lot more about what loyalty looks like, what ambition looks like. I could not stand Taryn. I don't know what it was, but Taryn Duarte, I will never like you. And that's really hard for me in a book. Character who seemingly gets away unscathed for the things that they do. I think that de-immersed me a little bit from Wicked King, and I felt that the writing was a little bit weak. Like, I felt like it was so obvious the riddle at the end was what it was. I was kind of surprised it took her so long. And in saying that, I read Queen of Nothing, which I felt like I flew through this. This was such an easy read. I didn't love the reason that Jude went back to Fairy. I don't like her sister. I did like the subversion of the trend though, because Jude was kind of the one who was late to the party on the feelings that they shared for each other. And I will say, I've seen a lot of people in the Goodreads reviews say that they felt like the political scheming in this was a little too easy, 1, 2, 3. I don't think so. To be honest, I felt like it was very realistic. I think a lot of people want super high stakes because that's what a lot of high fantasy is. But this was very realistic political scheming that would have happened on a low level trying to get a king on the throne, like back in medieval Europe. Jude and Maddox specifically just won a lot because they were making smart moves. With that being said, I did think it was a little low stakes. I didn't think that anybody would truly be unalived. And also I predicted that the twist with Cardan was going to be what it was. In saying that, this is a YA book, so that is to be expected. I wish we could have got a little bit more tension between Jude and Cardan, but this is definitely not a romantasy book. This is a political fairy fantasy book with a romance aspect, which I really appreciated, and I am excited for Stolen Air. The Folk of Air series was really immersive, and hats off to you, Holly Black, or ears off to you, I guess. I saw Holly Black got her ears like turned into points. It's like at this point I'm just not convinced that she's not a fairy. So that was it. That was all the fantasy books that I read in January. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want me to focus on any genre for another month. Like, maybe we'll do only thrillers. Maybe we'll do only Southern Gothics. Who knows? But please, please, please recommend me your favorite fantasy series below in the comments. I am just speeding through the genre right now. I'm in such a fantasy phase. So I want to read anything and everything that I can. I love you guys. I will see you all in my next video. Bye. Bye.